Yeah, just take out the whole line. That's great. I like it. All right. Let's get this going. All right. Tonight on the show, college football lost a legend. Lou Holtz, national championship coach and one of the most iconic voices in sports, has passed away. We'll look back at his legacy he leaves behind and what it meant to the game. Plus, Georgia shows up in Indianapolis and once again reminds everyone why the Dogs are the standard in college football. So yeah, we got a lot to get to. Let's talk about it. This is the Nitro College Football Show. I'm Burl.
I'm Street.
All right. And so, Lou Holtz, before we get into everything that's happening in college football, we got to start with Lou Holtz. He passed away today after being in hospice for quite a while, actually. You know, he really fought it out.
Yeah, there was rumors that he
really
passed
sad
a
day.
couple weeks ago. I and it went around, but then today, when kind of the official word came out, you knew it wasn't just people on the internet talking this time.
Yeah, but absolute legend, national champion at Notre Dame, actually made South Carolina palatable. It was pretty, he really got them, brought them up a little bit. And then just legend at ESPN, arguing with Mark May, calling him an idiot. It was great.
Yeah. So Coach Holtz passed away at 89 today. You know, his coaching career was long. It spanned 45 years, a career that started in coaching in 1960 and lasted until he retired at South Carolina in 2000 after the 2005 season. Um, he's the last coach to lead Notre Dame to a national championship. And, you kind of feel sad for him because until his last time you saw him on television, he was a diehard Notre Dame homer. He loved rooting for the Irish, and they got close last year. So kind of sad, right? A sad moment that he didn't ever get to see them get back to the national championship, even though through some of their years when they were not at the top, he was still defending them. Oh yes, Notre Dame. He always picked them, and just one of those lovable characters in college football.
Yeah.
College football, that's what college football has been. That's why we love it, because it's full of characters. It's not just your cookie cutter people that you see in the NFL, buttoned up and polished. Nah, it's an older guy with thick glasses and a thick lisp who loved the school that he coached for and unabashedly would call his guy on air with him an idiot and laugh about it. Just a great person, I think.
Yeah, and he was actually really one of the nicest guys you could meet. I randomly met him in Tampa, Florida. I was down there for a work trip, and I was going to the hotel gym, and I hop in the elevator, and next thing I know, it's Lou Holtz. I was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Hey, how you doing?" He was so nice.
Yeah. An impressive coaching career. Obviously, everybody knows about Notre Dame winning the national championship, but he was the head coach at Arkansas, at Minnesota. He coached the New York Jets. But I think for me, at a time when, I got to school, I started at Georgia in 2000. He was the head coach at South Carolina. And winning a national championship was impressive, but that was at a place like Notre Dame. The job that he did in his later years at South Carolina, a South Carolina program that when he took it over was about as low as you could get. South Carolina had joined the SEC in 1992 and had really hit the skids there. When he took over, the program was 0-11 in 1988 or 1998, excuse me. And then his first year there, they went 1-10. So like he took over a program that was absolute trash. But then in 2000, he led South Carolina to an 8-4 record, and they upset Ohio State in their bowl game. And I remember Georgia went to go play South Carolina at Columbia, and South Carolina coming off a 1-10 season. There wasn't a lot of buzz nationally about South Carolina. But I remember, I think that was my first away game as a student. I didn't go to the game, but I mean, it was the first away game we had that season. And South Carolina Stadium was rocking, even though
Absolutely.
they were a program that had been absolute trash for the last 2 years before that. And Georgia went up that game and they lost. I think that was the Quincy Carter throws 5 interceptions game, I think, right? And
Yeah.
That was a phenomenal season. He took that team that was 1-21 the previous 2 years to 8-4. I think he was named National Coach of the Year that year, and just did a great job there at South Carolina. Had some great years there. Kind of struggled at the end there, and he turned over the reins to Steve Spurrier. But just an amazing job turning around a program. And South Carolina has been better since then. They've had some up years and down years, but nothing like that.
They're not the laughing stock that they were prior to Lou Holtz. Absolutely. Right. And yeah, was it Williams-Brice? Absolutely underrated stadium. That place gets super loud because they actually have metal seat backs. And I remember being there for, it might have been the Pollock catch, and Georgia fans, we were so loud. It was amazing.
Yeah. And so, after his coaching career ended, he had this kind of second life really as a commentator on ESPN. And I think for people of a certain age like us, a lot of those formative years of us those first years out of college was before you had kids and you're young and you stay up on Saturday night, you go to Athens, you come home and you turn on college game day final or college scoreboard final. And there was Lou Holtz and there was Mark May on the other side. And they had, Reese Davis would put on this robe and be the judge, and they would take different sides of an argument. And it was just a fun way to wrap your day. And like I said, Lou Holtz was never afraid to make fun of Mark May, to call him an idiot. And it was just always fun. And it really left a good impression of a guy who loved the sport and loved the teams that he loved and wanted to make people smile.
Those were great because people wanted to hate on Lou Holtz because of Notre Dame, but he was such a lovable guy, and Mark May was not. So it became that everybody hated Mark May because everybody thought he was a jerk. But also,
Georgia fans already hated Mark May because they thought that he hated Georgia. And before, if you remember on that show, before it was Lou Holtz, it was Trev Alberts. And Mark May got Trev Alberts fired, I think.
Yeah, Trev Alberts was actually legit.
Right. And so it was a good replacement, and while, Lou Holtz wasn't necessarily a Georgia supporter, I think he liked Georgia more than Mark May did on that show.
Yeah. Lou Holtz was awesome. One of the most recognizable voices that you could hear on television, when it comes to college football. I mean, you got the guy from Pat McAfee always doing the impersonation, which is pretty good. Yeah. And hopefully they do some tributes.
Yeah.
For him.
And he wasn't just, obviously football was his big thing, but he did a lot of motivational speaking and stuff. I don't know if you've ever seen him do the newspaper trick that he did at Texas, where he's talking about life and he's like, life rips at you, and he rips up this paper and he's ripped it down. It was a newspaper, and he's ripped it into like things, and as he's talking, and he bunches it all up, and then he pulls it back out, and the paper suddenly back together. And the whole room, it was at the University of Texas, and the whole room like loses it. Like, how did he do this? And he just always had little things that could make you laugh. And one of my favorite quotes that I've heard, that I've seen go around today, but I saw it and I remembered, oh my gosh, he did say that. He said, "Your wife is not your best friend. Your dog is. Lock the two in the back of a trunk, come back in 2 hours, and see which one is happy to see you." That's just the kind of guy who was. Good, solid advice for people. Already starting to see some tributes pop up, but just a happy person. And, it's sad, but he lived a good, long life, and we'll miss you, Coach Holtz.
Absolutely will. He definitely lived a hell of a life. I mean, think of all that he accomplished and got to do. We will definitely be missed. College football is going to feel a little different without him around. But if you're enjoying the show right now and you like what you hear, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's keep talking some college ball. So while we're remembering Lou Holtz, legend of the game itself is changing again. There's some new keyword proposed college football rule changes.
Yeah. So the first one is interesting because you started to hear some grumblings about what happens this year after spring practice. Last year, in years past, there was a transfer portal window after spring practice. But in the rules changes last year, now for football, there's only one transfer portal, and it's already passed. So I jokingly said to you the other day, I said, what happens when teams start getting creative and say, why don't you go into the transfer portal for basketball? Because the basketball transfer portal happens after the basketball season's over. What's stopping you from saying, oh, we're taking this guy as a transfer in basketball, and then he's going to walk onto the football team? So I guess there's a name for that concept kind of going around the media. It's blind transfers. It's essentially people transferring after a portal's over. They're not even entering the transfer portal per se for football because they're just changing schools.
What would be the most ridiculous sport selection for blind transfer? Equestrian?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, for a common men's sport, I mean, what, like crew?
Water polo.
Yeah. So obviously the NCAA doesn't want that to happen, but right now there are no rules on the book that say you can't have a player who just leaves schools and transfers. And because of how current things are, because we know the NCAA has no power over players, clearly, what can they do? Well, the one thing that they do have power over is the schools, because the schools choose to be members of the NCAA. Players are not technically part of the NCAA, but the schools are. So there have been some rules proposed that would give really harsh penalties, particularly designed at stopping players from transferring without going into the proper transfer portal window. So here's
good. This is good.
This is good. Now, the chances of this actually passing,
very low.
but here's what it entails. So for schools that take players outside of the transfer portal window, so essentially a blind transfer, first, the school would get a fine of 20% of their school's football budget. So if you're Podunk State, that might not be much money. But if you are an Ohio State or a Georgia, or a Texas, where you are spending upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars on your football budget, that's a lot of money. So that's one. Number two is a reduction in roster spots by 5, because now it's not scholarships anymore, it's rosters, right? So reduction by 5 for the next season. I think it's for like the next season and another season.
That's actually pretty big.
Right. That's huge.
Yeah, because I mean, you never know which kid is going to hit, right?
Right.
Like you can have all the 5 stars, but we've seen 5 stars fizzle out, and we've seen 3 stars become the greatest of all time. So every spot on your roster at this point is absolutely important.
Well, and we talked about this when they changed that rule from scholarships to rosters last year, because under the old rules, you had 85 scholarships, and then you could take as many walk-ons as you wanted. But under the new rule, you get, I think in football, it's 105. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a walk-on, but also you're capped at 105. So
Yeah.
you have,
and that hurts your depth. I mean, a lot of bad things just come out of that.
yeah. So then the last part of this proposed rule change would be full suspension of the head coach for the first 6 weeks of the next season. So essentially half. And that's not just like Jim Harbaugh suspension, like, oh, you can't be at the games, but you're still coaching the week. It's full suspension, like no contact with the program for that first 6 weeks of the season. So
wow,
I think these are pretty
huge.
I mean, I think these are pretty harsh penalties, and I think it would stop it. But the question is, what players are going to find loopholes around it, right?
Well, let's say it does get passed. How can a school, I mean, like an admissions person, right? Like, you don't have to be an athlete to transfer a school, right?
Right.
Like, you transfer from one school to the other, transfer your credits, happens all the time. So if you're an athlete, you could still do the same thing. You don't have to be there technically as an athlete, but still then just go out for the football team.
Right. But that's what they're saying. They're trying to hunt down clear cases where this guy was on scholarship somewhere else, or scholarship, whatever. He was on this team. Suddenly he drops after spring practice is done, and then suddenly he wants to enroll. Like, so, if this doesn't happen,
the kids will never get hit by any of this stuff.
Right. The kid could go transfer. I mean, that's why, like I said,
they could get busted for that, and then he transfers somewhere else.
Right. So why do people think this is going to happen? Well, because right now there's not incentive not to do it. And this first year without this second portal window. Injuries are going to happen this spring in spring practice, or some guys are going to just flat out show up out of shape or look bad or whatever.
Or get
beat. Not like
Or just get beat out for their position. Yeah.
So there are definitely going to be some programs that lose a guy to injury or think they're just one player away. And if they can entice somebody to come with no penalty, it's going to happen.
This will be the year to do it.
Yeah. I mean, as the article that was written about this said, some national analyst, they didn't say who it was, said he expects around 15 of these higher profile cases to happen this year if there's no rules in place.
That's interesting. I wonder what the high profile ones are going to be.
Yeah. I mean, well, right now you can tell who those schools are, but it's the same ones that's the core four that they've talked about that are outspending everybody under their brother, right?
Miami, Texas Tech,
and Oregon. Like it's those four,
Fun times. So another potential rule change having to do with targeting. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, so the proposal on this is a 1-year trial run to change, and I think this one will probably end up getting passed. Right now the rule exists that if you get kicked out of targeting in the second half of a game, that you are suspended for the first half of your next game. Which, I think the targeting rule, we've talked about it ad nauseum, is kind of stupid. Anyway, the NFL, they don't kick you out. These guys are moving so fast and so quick. It's like, give the penalty. I understand the penalty, but kicking guys out, like I understand originally it was to cut down on the big hits. They have. Players are taught to tackle different. Players, there's a lot of times you see guys get kicked out for targeting where clearly the player was like making an effort not to commit a targeting, but the offensive player moved at the last minute or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see that a lot. I mean, it happens all the time.
I think the suspension rule in general was dumb, but even if they feel the need to keep that in place, having a guy suspended for part of the next game because it happened in the second half, that's just dumb to me.
It is. And the thing that I like about this is you mentioned this happens in super fast speed. Real time is super fast. And now we're slowing everything down to a frame by frame to try to judge intent of a hit. And I'm sorry, but things look different when you slow it down compared
Right.
to, what someone's doing in real time. And I think this would be a good change. I don't think it's really fair to the kids, to get to. It's already bad enough they get kicked out of the game, but then now they're going to, miss another game.
Right. And I mean, what even is targeting at this point?
Nobody knows.
The call that didn't get called against Gunnar Stockton in the Sugar Bowl, where the Ole Miss guy just absolutely lit him up. Gunnar was in the air and the guy launched at him and then didn't get called. But then we had the other one get called against us like a few plays later. It's like nobody even knows. Nobody can give you a good definition. Like, oh, he wasn't like, it's just dumb. So I think penalizing a guy in the next game, if you want to keep the ejection in, I don't like it, but fine. But making him another game, it's just dumb. It potentially impacting another game with something that happened the previous game, to me, and it's not a discipline situation. It's not like it was before where guys head hunting or you got kicked out of the game because you were fighting, like you made a football play.
Right.
It's dumb, and it hurts the competition of the next game. And I think we need to keep competition as good as we can. So
I concur. Let's see some other changes. Offensive pass interference penalties would be 10 yards instead of 15. That's interesting. I wonder why they chose that.
Isn't that what it is in the NFL? I think.
NFL, I don't know.
I don't know, maybe they feel like they don't want to call them now because it's such a big penalty. And because on the defense, maybe it's because on the defensive side of the ball in college, a defensive pass interference sometimes is a smart play, right? If you're burned.
Yeah, if you're getting burnt, you tackle the guy.
Rip the guy down. Maybe the thought is the same thing, that maybe if it's less yards, maybe they'll call them more so that offensive players, defensive players have that advantage right now that they can pull an offensive guy down. Maybe this is to help the defensive players have a little advantage, because if the offensive player commits the penalty, it's less. That logic doesn't make sense now that I said it out loud.
No, I know,
it didn't make sense. But yeah, I don't know. It's just different rules, I guess.
Yeah, if they really wanted to make it more fair, I guess, like make it 5 yards, because you can say the same thing for offensive pass interference. Like if you see that the defender's going to intercept the ball, you just tackle him so he doesn't intercept it.
Maybe
but now you're punished by you get a 15-yard penalty on top of wherever you were at. So that's actually way more harsh than the defensive one, because you just get a, start over, fresh set of downs. You still get 4 downs to stop them.
It's matching the NFL. The NFL is a 10-yard penalty.
Interesting.
So that's probably it. Now the one difference that still exists, I guess, between college and NFL is defensive holding in the NFL is a 5-yard penalty and an automatic first down, where in college it's a 10-yard penalty. So maybe they'll align that in the future too. I don't know. Maybe it's part of this whole trying to be more NFL minor leagues. I don't know. As long as they don't put in that stupid kickoff rule, I'm fine.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I really hope they don't do that. I don't ever want to see that in college football, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That just sucks, because then you don't get the onside kick that Kirby did against Texas.
Right.
That's gone. I mean, the kickoff is such a joke anyway. Like they hardly ever even return it anymore, and you don't even have to down it in the end zone anymore.
I think they actually do return it more now, but because of how it's set up, like it just doesn't get much.
I don't know. It seems like in most of the games that Georgia plays in, the kickers are pretty
Oh
damn
no,
good.
I was talking about the NFL rule. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about college. Like you don't even have to down it in the end zone anymore.
Right,
You know?
right. Yeah, you can fair catch it, and it moves it up to 25. So
Yeah, it's wild because like I remember back in the day, LSU guy took like one step out of the end zone and kneeled it down and was down
Georgia
at the
Tech
one.
did it too one
Yeah,
year.
that was awesome.
So, well, there's another rule proposal that's on the books that is related to fair catching, and that is the fair catch kick after a completed fair catch rule. Now, Burl, I asked you this before. Do you want to explain to our listeners what a fair catch kick is?
Okay, I'm going to do my best.
All right.
Okay, so all right, so you're punting the ball. And
yes, I'm the punter.
You're the punter. You're in your end zone. Let's just say you're in your end zone. You're punting from your end zone. And
you're up 1 point. Let's say you're up 1 point.
I'm up 1 point, 2 points.
No, 1 point, because then if it was more than that, I could just run out of the back of the end zone. Okay, I got to punt
it. You're up. Yeah, up 1 point. So you got to punt. You punt it. And it's a terrible kick for whatever reason. Either we, rush you or you just shank it. And I'm going to fair catch it. And I'm going to fair catch it at the 30, let's say. So I'm definitely within field goal range. So now I can invoke this rule for a fair catch kick that will allow me to do a field goal. And here's the kicker, no pun intended. The defense has to stay 10 yards back. So there's no pressure rush on this kick.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a fair kick is awarded on a fair catch, on a completed fair catch. And the trick of this rule is that kicking attempt is allowed even if there's no time left on the clock. So let's say the scenario we had played out. Let's say there was 7 seconds left on the clock. And I'm like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to boot it super duper high, and he's going to have to catch it, because there's not going to be any time left on the clock. He's going to have to try to return it or whatever, and the game's over. I'll kick it high, and we'll just tackle him as soon as he touches it. He can't fair catch it or whatever. Well, in this rule change, if the guy does fair catch it, then he can have the option to have a free kick. And this is an old rule. It's a remnant from early football, but it hasn't been done for a long time. But then in 2024 in the NFL, because it was still on the books, Cameron Dicker successfully converted a 50-70-yard attempt. And it was the first time that one had been successfully done since 1976.
Yep. And funny enough, the big brain of Jim Harbaugh was his idea.
So I think that's a fun, interesting one. I could see him allowing it and then it ruining some kind of game, and then they're like, "Nah, we get it out of there." This is an old when touchdowns were only worth 5 points, and the final score was like 2-3.
Yeah, that I really hope we see it a lot this year now, because it's kind of like the red car rule, like you start thinking about a red car, so now you see nothing but red cars all the time.
I mean, the thing is, the interesting thing is if this is passed, will coaches pay attention to it and actually remember that it's there? Because this rule has been on the books in the NFL, just nobody has done it. People just don't know about it.
Oh, I'm sure if it passes, it'll get used.
I'm sure like all your little your 1AA schools and all your mid it's like mid majors in basketball, come up with crazy things.
Well, if you're a special teams coach, you need to have this on your play sheet, right? So it's like, oh my gosh, we're going into the half. There's no time left. They're punting to us. Fair catch kick. Let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, the of course, the defense of that, just kick the ball out of bounds. If the time's running out. I mean, there is a defense to it. So like I said, it's the element of surprise. If the kicking team doesn't know about the rule, you can surprise them. But there is a good way to defense against it. So
Yeah. Also have a kicker like Brett Thorson who can just boom it to the other side of the field.
Right. Yeah, just kick it down where they, But I mean, shoot, nowadays kickers are kicking 60-yarders. I mean, damn, that dude from Ole Miss could have probably been good from about 70 in the freaking Sugar Bowl.
Oh,
He was
absolutely.
nuts. And then he missed one in the next game, or two in the next game. He missed one and he doinked one in. It's crazy.
So while we're on the topic of kickers, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Who wears short shorts?
Daisy Duke?
Oklahoma kicker and a lot of football players.
A lot of football players. A lot of football players. Not as short as old Oklahoma dude there, but even old Gunner was definitely wearing the shorts this
year.
The
shorts, as the Larry the Cable Guy says.
So you mentioned that because that's another one of the proposed rule changes. One which I think will pass, that says that players are going to have to wear coverings and pads down to their knees, which is the rule in the NFL. You don't see these ridiculous short shorts in the NFL. It's a player safety issue, but also it just looks a little ridiculous.
It does, especially when they have it like super cut up. They literally look like Daisy Dukes at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be good for everybody to not have to deal with the shorty shorts. I'm a fan of this rule.
Yeah.
Although we would miss out on moments of announcers calling out dudes in shorty shorts.
Right. So, like I said, all of these rules that we've discussed here tonight, everything is proposed. Will all of it pass? Most certainly, probably not. But we'll find out, in the next few days. Now, interesting of note from a Georgia fan perspective that, Josh Brooks is one of the guys kind of leading this charge on these penalties about the transfer portal. Wow. He's part of that rules committee. So he's one of the ones leading the charge. And as we talked about before, Georgia wanted to be in compliance with this whole NIL stuff. And they thought people would.
Yeah.
And they didn't, and that's why we got the new collective.
Away.
Right.
Yeah. Never. What was it? Just always don't trust anybody. Listen to Stone Cold. DTA, baby.
DTA, man. DTA.
Yeah. These are good rule changes. Hopefully, they go from being proposed to passed, but we shall see. Even if they do get passed, they probably won't be enforced.
Yeah,
because that's what the NCAA does. They set all these rules and don't enforce them, or they go to court and throw their hands up and walk out of the court.
Yeah.
All right. So real quick, if you're enjoying the show, make sure you like and subscribe. It's the little subscribe button down at the bottom right. I don't know if I'm pointing right or left. One of these ways. Click it, like it, share it, tell your friends. If you're already subscribed, why aren't you telling your friends? Come on.
And if you're not subscribed, which we know from statistics that a lot of you guys aren't, and a lot of you guys turned in over the last few weeks that had never been watching our show before, do us a favor and subscribe. It just helps us out, man.
Yeah. Help a brother out. All right. Let's talk about some Georgia Bulldogs, because once again, the Dogs showed up in Indy. Seems to be a great place if you're a Georgia Bulldog.
Yep. And as the Indianapolis NFL scouting combine has been kind to the Dogs in recent years, this year, while not necessarily the flashiness of having a star quarterback or a top running back out there, this year didn't disappoint in terms of the performance put in by the Georgia players. And really, honestly, the performance of college football players as a whole at the combine this year was insane. Like the testing numbers and the speed and everything was just like crazy off the charts this year.
It really was. Like the kid from Oregon, the tight end running a 4.3, 4.4, something crazy like that.
Well, they had like the testing numbers and the speed like by position group, and it was like They were all either the first or second best in the history of the combine in like every position group.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
for the 40s and shuttle times and vertical jumps and broad jumps and everything. It was just crazy.
Yeah,
I guess you're getting NIL money in college. I guess you're keeping better shape of your body and not just really working to get it after you've made the decision to go pro, since you're already a pro.
Yeah, I think what Monroe Freeling was like the second best rated lineman ever.
Yeah. So would you like to transition into talking about the Georgia players?
Let's do that. So let's start with Monroe Freeling. He had an awesome combine.
Absolute dog at the combine.
Dog.
6'7", 315. Already perfect size, for a future left tackle in the NFL draft. What you were talking about was the RAS score, which is like all these ratings on speed and stuff. And he scored a 9.99 out of 10. And here's the crazy statistic about that. They've been tracking this since 1987. And there have been 1,512 offensive tackles rated in that time period. Monroe Freeling's score was the second of all time.
Amazing. I don't think there's anybody in the combine that helped themselves more than Monroe Freeling.
No, he showed great flexibility. His 40-yard dash time, 4.93, and 1.72 10-yard split, which for, everybody talks about the 40, but really for offensive tackles, it's not that important. But they do like that split, that 10-yard, because that shows their get up speed and move outside. 1.72 was fast. He had the fifth best 40 time in out of all the tackles, but out of all the tackles that were considered kind of first round guys, now he probably won't be the first tackle taken in this draft, but he definitely submitted himself as a first round player. He was kind of fringe.
Yeah.
He's going to go in the first round barring some kind of major injury or a total crap in the bed at pro day.
I could see him going in the first round after his combine. I mean, to be the number 2 RAS score of all time, I mean, that's insane. And then they kept showing highlights of him versus Colin Simmons just dominating him. It was, I mean, what's not to love about that for a left tackle? I mean,
yeah. And he was impressive in the interviews too. He talked about Kirby Smart, the story about when he was hurt the week that he wasn't going to play, and Kirby Smart's there on the microphone yelling at people, and Kirby starts chewing him out. He's like, "Coach, I'm injured. I can't even play." And then he talks about this year when they went to go play at Auburn, and he wasn't even supposed to dress. And at the last minute, they were like, "Well, can you dress and go?" And he said, "Yeah, he did." And he ended up playing like the whole game and like won offensive lineman of the week. Just very impressive in his talking. Like I said, he was a fringe first rounder coming into this, but there's no doubt he's going to be a first round pick. I project him to be a first round pick. I've seen mocks even having him as high as number 6 to Cleveland. So he definitely helped himself.
I pray for anybody that goes to Cleveland. Okay, so we got 10 total players from Georgia. So next we got linebacker CJ Allen, the leader of the Dogs defense this past year.
Yeah. So he didn't participate in like the skills. He did the measurements, went through 6'1", 230, but he didn't participate in the drills. He said that, he had that knee injury late in the season. And so I guess just more time is better. He's going to do all that stuff at Pro Day, which is going to be March 18th in Athens. But what you really liked out of CJ Allen, which is stuff that if you're a Georgia fan, you already have heard people sing the praises of CJ Allen about how smart he was, how he was the captain on that team. But I don't think I understood it until they really started talking about it. And basically they said that Glenn Schumann basically let him run the defense. Like they let him run the show. He was making the calls. He was getting the players lined up. And that's something that that's awesome. Happened at Georgia.
I mean, that's how the best defenses work. And if you listen to anything Nick Saban has ever said, he always talks about player accountability. And that only happens on the field when your players are holding each other accountable and taking ownership of everything that they're doing on the field. And that's exactly what CJ Allen was doing. And you saw Georgia's defense steadily improve throughout the year under his leadership.
And the guy, you know what was really impressive as the year went on was the guys around him got better. And particularly Raylan Wilson at the other inside linebacker spot. You know, Raylan Wilson struggled a lot early in the year. We talked about it. And he got better and better as the year went on. And I think that was because CJ Allen was there to help. And it's impressive. It's impressive that a guy was responsible out there. They said he was the one, if there were audibles, he called them. He did the checks, unless it was a specific situational call. He was the guy calling everything on the field. And now you can kind of see when he got hurt in that Texas game, why it was a little bit, disjointed when he wasn't in there. As one scout said, he gets them lined up. He's tough and he's a great leader. So where do we project CJ Allen to go? I think, most mocks and based on this, once again, unless he has a horrible pro day in Athens, he's probably a late first round type guy.
Yeah.
Dallas has been mentioned as a potential spot.
I think
for
so.
him.
That would be interesting. I mean, they do need a linebacker, right? Because no Micah Parsons there. All right, another guy who really helped himself out at the combine, Zachariah Branch, Mr. Electric on Georgia's wide receiver position this past year.
So here's some crazy stuff about Zachariah Branch, okay? He measured in just under 5'9". So he's only 8 3/4. He's not a big guy, okay? His hand size was 9 inches, which is super small for a receiver. Okay. He did everything he did at Georgia at that size this year. 177 pounds soaking wet. Small hands. He ran a 4.35 40, which was one of the best times in the whole combine. He jumped 38 inches, showing his explosiveness. And hell, even when they did bench press, little guy like that, he threw up I think it was 20 reps at 225, which is impressive for a not big guy. So, the knock, and there was talk about Branch. Oh, Branch was, just a screen merchant, whatever. That's what Georgia needed him to be. But he talked about it. He talked about Bobo's play calls in some of his interviews. And we talked about it last week that he was everything for Georgia.
Well,
this is a guy.
Let me say this. I mean, him being a screen guy, I think that makes what he did, honestly, a little more impressive, because you look at all the yards after catch that he had, and he was making people miss, getting first downs on 3rd and 4th downs and long with nobody blocking in front of him.
Yeah. And Mel Kiper, what do you believe about Mel Kiper? This is what he said about Branch. He said, Branch ran as fast as expected, turning in a 4.35 second 40. He was explosive as expected, jumping 38 inches. But it was his work in the gauntlet drill that stood out most. So, once again, Branch is a guy, size stuff, you can overlook it. He could be, a late first-round guy. Probably not, though. The size is going to win out people. That's going to turn some people off. Some people are going to criticize, screen game. But I think with this performance, I think we'll definitely see him in round 2. Some people said, anywhere late 1st to 3rd. But I think this is probably a second-round performance for him.
Absolutely. I mean, if there was ever a slot receiver prototype, it would be him. So that was awesome to see. And he also had a nice little backflip layout at the end when all the players are running down the field. He's like, wee. All right. Next, we got Christian Miller. He's been hyped up all year long, and well deserved. Really, one of the rocks on that Georgia defensive line this past year.
Yeah, he didn't participate in much other than your measurements and stuff there. Did the interview process there. I think if you're pointing out one thing, he did weigh in at 321 pounds, which is big. I think that's bigger than what a lot of people realized how he was. Lots of people are on high on him. I've seen mocks anywhere late first round, early second round. Seems like that's probably somewhere he's going to go. Obviously, pro day performance will determine that for him. You know, had some good interviews and things like that. So nothing huge on that front. But I don't think we learned anything that we didn't already know about Christian Miller.
Yeah, I agree. Not really much to go on there, right?
Right.
So talk about who I think would be the steal of the draft. And that's Oscar Delp at tight end. Completely underutilized in the passing game this past year and drastically improved his blocking game.
Yeah.
Like elite level blocker. And the little bit of tape that they do have on him in the passing game is really, really good. And we also learned something about him.
Yeah, we did. So we learned that when they did this medical screening, they found that he had a hairline fracture in his foot. And apparently he'd had that all year. For whatever reason, they just didn't see it. And he'd had it all season long. So this was a guy who played through the entire year with a fracture in his foot, which is impressive.
With a broken freaking foot.
Right. Yeah, but Delp, I mean, he came in at 6'5", which I didn't know he was that big. But he talked about the perception that he was a blocking tight end because he didn't do a ton in the passing game, you know. But he said, number one, when I first got there, we had Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington. It wasn't like I was needed in the pass game, but he said, when I got to college, I felt like I was a receiving tight end who learned how to block. Where some people said, oh, he's a blocking tight end, but he's got some game in the receiving game. So he's a guy that, this medical stuff prevented him from doing tests. So obviously, I guess he'll get that cleared up and work out at pro day. But
he also the tight ends didn't get a lot of targets this year.
Right.
So he didn't really get a chance to showcase his talents. But when he did get the ball thrown to him, he was automatic and he has amazing burst. Like almost Brock Bowers like burst.
Yeah. So in a draft where there are some high profile tight ends that look pretty good coming out. I mean, right now, projection round 5, round 6, somewhere in there. I think if he tests well at Georgia Pro Day, maybe he's a guy who moves up a little bit. But for right now, 5th, 6th rounder, he'll definitely be a guy who's going to get drafted and probably find a home on a roster next year in the NFL.
West Forsyth. Okay, another guy who I thought helped his stock immensely is Dylan Bell.
Made the best catch of the entire combines, one-handed ridiculously. Looked really impressive for running that gauntlet. Like, he just looked fluid and smooth. Ran a 4.5 40, which is faster than what I thought he was. I didn't really think of him that much as a speed guy at Georgia. He could move, but I thought that was a pretty good 40 time for him. Mm-hmm. And I think the most important thing that they talked about with him was that he said that some teams at the draft talked to him about potentially switching to running back. So he did go through everything as a receiver, but we saw him at Georgia be kind of that gadget guy, particularly a couple of years ago when we had some guys hurt. And he looked good as a running back. He didn't get to do that much this year, but really lining up as a running back. So you think back to some guys who made that transition to running back in the NFL from receiver. Like one that comes to mind was Montgomery that played for the Packers. That was a guy playing running back. I think that could be a role for him if he can find that gadget position.
The receiver from Tennessee, Cordero Patterson.
Yeah. That eventually became, but he was a receiver in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, obviously when he was
with the
Falcons,
he became a running back. I think that would be an awesome move for him, honestly, because the way running backs are used nowadays.
Yeah,
that
as a pass catcher,
it's very much in the passing game. I mean, I'm not saying like he's James Cook, but I mean he could fill a similar style, right?
Right. So for Dylan Bell, he was a guy who came in probably, late, maybe 7th round, maybe undrafted free agent type guy. Just he had good numbers at Georgia, but not overly crazy. Had some drop issues here or there. I think this was a good combine for him. I think he will get drafted. Probably be 6th, 7th round, but a day 3 guy nonetheless.
Hey, getting drafted is getting drafted.
Hell yeah.
All right. Next, we got Micah Morris, offensive lineman, one of the stalwarts there on the line for a couple of years at Georgia.
This is another guy who helped himself. We talked about the impressive RAS score that Monroe Freeling put up. Well, Micah Morris put up a 998. And we talked about the crazy number, Freeling's being 2nd out of 1,512 all time. Micah Morris's was 5th out of 1,748 offensive guards all time.
God, so we had the number 2 tackle and the number 5
on these physical projections. They take these physical numbers and project how solid that player will be as a professional. That's what that does. Like, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
So he ran a 509 in the 40, which is, once again, he's 334 pounds.
That's all.
Yeah. I mean, he's huge. So he's a guy who, I think he's right around those middle round projections, round 4, round 5. Seems like he solidified that pretty much.
Yep. I agree. Okay, all right. Next guy who I have been high on for the past few years. I've always sung his praises, and I think he's someone that really helped himself out in the combine, and that's cornerback Dalen Everett. Big game Dalen, baby.
The Texas killer, Dalen Everett.
Yeah, and I saw something that was really funny, like that Dallas didn't interview him for whatever reason. And so I commented, I was like, don't they know that Dalen Everett plays his best ball in Texas?
Yeah. Like you said, he had a hell of a combine. At the cornerback position, they had 5 different things. I guess the whatever it was, 5 different skills or whatever. He was the fastest speed at the position in 3 different skills, and then top 3 in the other 2.
His 40 time was shocking.
4.38. Yeah.
Nobody knew that about
him. And he's 6'1". he's they said that also when he was running during one of the drills, he hit the top speed of any player at the whole entire combine. He hit 23.28 miles per hour running.
I'm so happy for him.
Yeah. So
I just hope he doesn't go to the Jets or the Browns.
Yeah. The only thing was that the quarterback position at this draft, they said, was really strong. Like, lots of guys tested really well. Everett had really good numbers too. So in terms of where he's going to go, they say round 3, 4. That's probably just based on production. Because while he was a solid player and he had some big moments for Georgia, he didn't blow anybody away with numbers like some of these other guys in the combine. So while he solidified himself, he probably didn't move up much, but hell, 3, 4, that's a good spot for him. So.
Well, I mean, he also didn't have a lot of targets thrown his way either.
Very true. Very true.
So, I mean, running, 4.3, that's all. I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's a huge number.
Yep.
At the combine. So I'm happy for him. 3rd round draft grade, that's your everyday starter. I mean,
right.
That's the meat and potatoes of the NFL right there.
Yep. All right, we got 2 guys left. So next up, we got punter Brett Thorson.
Brett Thorson.
Love Brett Thorson. He's regarded as the top punter or kicker in this draft.
And tackler.
He's a big dude for a punter, 237 pounds. He's probably going to get drafted. So, as a punter, getting drafted is typically even a challenge. There's usually 1, maybe 2 drafted a year. So I think he will get drafted just based on him being rated highly and people liking what he's done. And he's also a little bit older too. He's a guy who can come in and start. So
yeah,
not much else to say there.
Always interesting to see a punter get drafted.
Yeah.
And last but certainly not least, Colby Young.
This is another guy who may have helped himself out a lot. First and foremost, he helped himself out because they actually measured how tall he was correctly. For his 2 years at Georgia, they had him listed at 6'3". He measured in at 6'5" at the draft. Normally schools, put people taller than they actually are, and they go to the draft and they're shorter. But that didn't happen here. Colby Young's an interesting prospect.
That's crazy that would happen. Like that.
Right. Unless he grew 2 years. I mean, he is still a young guy, but.
I mean, HGH, baby.
So Colby Young is a very interesting draft prospect, though, because the last 2 years at Georgia, both his years really cut short. He had the legal stuff that ended up getting kicked out last year, and then he had the broken foot or ankle or leg, whatever it was this year. It caused him missed time. He ran a 4.49 40, so a good time. He had a good gauntlet drill, and I think he's a guy that NFL teams are going to look at and see that 6'5" and see some of the plays he did get to make, and they'll overlook some of the injuries. I think he's a 5th or 6th rounder.
I can see
despite
that.
the lack of overall production.
Yeah, I mean, big body guy and got some speed, great hands, really good blocker. I mean, he's exactly what you want on the outside.
Yeah. So that's it for the guys at the combine. So let me ask you a question, Burl. Out of these guys we mentioned here tonight, who do you think is going to have the best pro career?
Ooh, let's see. Best pro career. I don't think it would be Dalen Everett because cornerback is the hardest position on the field.
And it gets booted. Yeah, you screw up a little bit and you get benched and lose your job.
Yeah. Wide receiver is pretty saturated. Zachariah Branch probably going to have a good career, but I mean,
yeah, but you can go as a small guy, you can be having a great career, and then all of a sudden you're out of the league like 2 years later.
Yeah, exactly. CJ Allen has a really good chance. So does Christian Miller with his size on the defensive line. He could be a guy that has a really long career. CJ Allen at linebacker. I mean, he just is following the lineage of great linebackers that Georgia's been putting into the NFL. So he's wherever he ends up, he's gonna be a great player. Hard to say about Monroe Freeling. I mean, he's got all the measurables. He played really well for Georgia, but he also had some games where he looked like absolute dog shit.
Right. And offensive tackles are so hard to project in the NFL, because they're big dudes, right? They get hurt. If you have any type of problems with your legs, it's just tough.
Yeah. And Micah Morris, same kind of deal. I could see Oscar Delp having a really good NFL career, just kind of like out of the blue. But I think the most probable is CJ Allen.
Yeah, I like that answer. Okay, so like I said, Georgia did have 10 guys. They have 4 guys that are draft eligible that were not invited to the combine. So those guys were running back Cash Jones, receiving specialist. Bo Gardner, who was an All-American. He's a long snapper, but they didn't invite him to the combine. But he is an All-American, the best at his position in the country. Noah Thomas, looked great at times, but was really absent until Colby Young got hurt. And then Josh McCray, So my question is, bro, do you think any of these guys have a chance of catching on with an NFL team?
Bo Gardner, absolutely. He'll get picked up by somebody because everybody needs a long snapper. And I think Noah Thomas will get picked up by somebody. I don't know that he'll be drafted.
Yeah.
Just just because of the season he had at Georgia that turned out to not be a great business move for him. Yeah, he posted some videos on Instagram. I don't know if you saw that, where
Mm-mm.
he was posting clips of him being wide open, but Gunner not throwing it to him.
Ouch.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if I would have been posting that on Instagram. That's probably not a good look for coaches,
Yeah.
or GMs.
Kids these days are a different animal, though.
True. But I mean, I get where he's coming from because, damn, he was open a lot.
Yeah.
Josh McCray is an interesting one because he's great at one thing.
Short yardage, man.
But that's a need.
Right. A fullback. In the day of the tush push, though, I don't know. He's interesting because, there's not a lot of pure fullbacks left in the NFL. And if he was already a bigger dude, if he could bulk up, maybe that's a spot for him.
Yeah, I think I just see him having a hard time catching on because the speed isn't there. Catching passes out of the backfield, that definitely wasn't there this year. So, Cash Jones, I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either. As good as he was as a pass catcher, just top end speed's not there. And this year, when they tried to run him, other than like 2 runs, he was getting negative yards most. So,
I mean, he may be able to catch on as a slot receiver. I was always hoping when he was at Georgia he would switch to the slot receiver because I thought he'd be an awesome slot receiver. Yeah. But that's just me. What do I know? I'm just some dude on the internet.
True. All right. Well, that wraps up our talk on the combine. What else what else have we got going on in the world of Georgia, bro?
Let's actually wrap it for today. Okay. We've already hit an hour.
All right. Cool. So, what you got going on? Anything got going on this week?
Recuperating. So we had a big cheer competition in Houston this past weekend, and my wallet is hurting.
Well, save up your money. Last thing I'll touch on before we leave today is that Georgia did announce G-Day. It's going to be on April 18th. Hopefully, they haven't announced the format. They haven't announced if it's going to be on TV yet. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. If it's not, maybe your boys at the Nitro Show record it and put it on the internet before they get yelled at by people again.
Maybe not. Maybe.
But let's hope that it's a full game. Without the late transfer portal window, maybe people won't be as up in arms about potentially putting tape out there for players who are going to leave. But yeah, other than that, I think that'll do it for this week. So until next time, I'm Street.
I'm Burl.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.